I'm so glad you have Circle because Circle is so important. Circle gives people the opportunity to drop in and feel safe. Now, we can create all we want, safe spaces, but if someone doesn't feel internally safe, they're never going to show up to any sacred space and trust. So, of course, there's that building up of trust. And, one of the lessons that we got so early on was to not be messy. The thing about emotions, they're messy. They're messy. They're unpredictable. You can't control them. And those who try fail miserably. And it's like anything else that we don't understand, there's fear built up around it.
Mm.
So what I notice when people are afraid of feeling, and it's usually those, I like to say there are particular emotions that people fear more, but quite honestly, in the emotional tour, the first stop on the emotional tour, and it's built to help people emote more fully. The first stop on that emotional tour is joy. And the reason why we start with joy is, one would think that joy isn't something that you suppress. However,
That was Bernadette Pleasant, and this is episode 72. Welcome to the Brave Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Lynn, founder of Sistership Circle and author of Open Your Heart and The Art of Leading Circle. I'm the mother of 2 girls, an 8 on the Enneagram, aka the Challenger, happily married to my business partner, Brent, love connecting with nature, and have put in well over 10,000 hours circling with other women. On this podcast, we will explore how to embody the brave woman so that you can take action on your dreams and desires, unapologetically speak your truth, and live life on your own terms. Grab a seat and a cup of tea, and let's get started. Hello, everyone. I am so excited for today's guest, Bernadette Pleasant, who I've been hearing about because she's been in my periphery for a while. And wow, oh wow, are we in for a treat today to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, which is our emotions. And my journey has been all about learning how to feel, how to be vulnerable. And so I feel like we've got a master here to guide us into the depths, into the range of our emotions. And so I want to have you, Bernadette, first just tell us a little bit about who you are and your background so we have a little bit of context of you before we dive in.
thank you, Tanya. It is a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure to spend this time with you and your audience and in this moment to feel.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. And I'm excited to do that. My name is Bernadette Pleasant, and I'm the founder of the Emotional Institute. I'm the creator of the Emotional Tour, which is something that I developed many years ago because of my own need to heal. Having spent years on the couch with an incredible therapist, there came a time when my body needed something more than to regurgitate my story. I needed to move it through my body and out. I needed to express what I was feeling, and I could not find what I was looking for. And that's where we create. That's what I did, and I'm excited to have done that. I'm excited to have explored courageously what I was feeling and going through, and with this total understanding that we heal by being witnessed. So rather than get private and quiet and secretive, there's nothing wrong with going inward, but there was a difference when I was becoming secretive and fearful of being seen. And that's when I knew I needed to do something different. And so I create bodies of work in workshops or working with private clients, all from what I've learned and gleaned and what has worked for me and what I've seen work for thousands of other people. And that's what I'm here to talk about. I love to just deep dive into feeling, emoting, and what that is like and how we can heal.
Oh, yes. Well, what immediately stood out to me is that piece around being witnessed in the feelings and how in our society we have been taught to stuff it down
Absolutely.
and you better not show some of those more ugly emotions and the importance. I mean, this is why I hold Circle, is to
Mm-hmm.
create that safe space for women to actually feel. And yet so many women come in absolutely terrified to put that camera on,
Sure.
absolutely terrified to show up if they're not feeling on. And typically there's this, well, I got to make sure that I can show up basically with the
Yeah.
happy face, right? And yet, like, that's not really what Circle's about.
It-
And that's not going to heal. And that's just kind of bypassing in a way. So yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you have Circle because Circle is so important. Circle gives people the opportunity to drop in and feel safe. Now, we can create all we want, safe spaces, but if someone doesn't feel internally safe, they're never going to show up to any sacred space and trust. So, of course, there's that building up of trust. And, one of the lessons that we got so early on was to not be messy. The thing about emotions, they're messy. They're messy, they're unpredictable, you can't control them, and those who try fail miserably. And it's like anything else that we don't understand, there's fear built up around it.
Mm.
So what I notice when people are afraid of feeling, and it's usually those, I like to say there are particular emotions that people fear more, but quite honestly, in the emotional tour, the first stop on the emotional tour, and it's built to help people emote more fully. The first stop on that emotional tour is joy. And the reason why we start with joy is, one would think that joy isn't something that you suppress. However, when you look deeper at joy, there's often this fear of not letting our laughter be too loud, not showing how much we are experiencing joy for fear that someone we love or care for can't relate, and therefore we are being too joyous, and therefore there's this stuffing down of even joy so as to fit into a narrow margin of acceptable range of emotion uh, display. And so joy too gets curtailed. And so if joy gets curtailed, what then happens with our anger, our grief, our confidence, our you name it? We If we do it with joy, we do it sort of universally with any emotion. And so my work in the world, and which I think resonates so much with Circle, is creating a space. I don't use the term safe spaces because I can't create safety for people. That is something only they can do for themselves. I can help affect that. But I create brave spaces. And these brave spaces are where people are expected to show up and grow. In much of my work, I use African drums, and I use the African drums because of the healing power within them. And that heartbeat is something we all heard while in utero. And to hear that heartbeat playing, those live skins playing while we are doing work, really allows the person engaged in the class to step out of their comfort zone, to grow, to expand, to do something brave in safety, just like they were carried in the womb. So that is the purpose for why I use the drum, so that they are growing while exploring and being curious about their feelings and expressing them.
I love that. And that's why this is called the Brave Woman Podcast. Because
Indeed.
exactly, we don't create safe
Indeed.
spaces We create brave spaces.
Absolutely. And
I
it's
love
important. It's so important to do. It takes courage to be brave, to make sounds, to get messy and show up. And what's on the other side of messy is actually liberation. And but getting to that can feel so uncomfortable that most people turn around. And so circle, places where you have community that is holding you through. That's sort of what I love to call like midwifing you through this very difficult phase. And it's only difficult because we haven't seen many people do it without being called crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we have to create safety for ourselves. We
Mhm.
have to start to feel safe within ourselves. So it kind of in this like, oh, I gotta be brave. I gotta show up in this brave space, but I don't feel safe. What are some of the ways that a woman can start to build that inherent safety within herself?
She can stop lying to herself.
Ooh.
Ooh. So here's the thing. Every one of us has this little inner child, the little one in there. And the little one doesn't know that they can trust us.
Mm.
I mean, I have dialogue with mine all the time, and it's sort of, I've abandoned my little one at times, and I have not acted in the best interest. I mean, so the big Bernadette, the adult me, needs to say, hey, we're going to do something different. I know this is scary. I'm trying to figure it out too, but I'm building this trust within myself that I am conscious about the steps that I am taking with me and little me in mind, and that I'm going to not just do the norm. I'm not going to shut down. I'm not going to take up less space. I'm going to risk healing by doing something different. And that might look a little scary. So I think it's baby steps, it's acknowledging and celebrating every baby step. So every baby step forward, and even celebrating the pause, like, okay, this is a little scary. I needed to move a little slower. That's okay. Let's celebrate that. That's great awareness. That's saying, hey, I don't want to get overwhelmed. I don't want to run in the opposite direction. So I need to celebrate just the fact that I'm willing to be here in this uncomfortable space. And I just need to take a pause before I take another breath or another step forward or do another bold thing before I raise my hand, before I decide not to self-sabotage or beat up on myself or bully myself, the internal bully. I'm going to do this because when I stop doing that to me, I actually stop doing it to other people and it kind of spreads kindness. So it's one of those things that has this impact that's fairly quiet, but it's beautiful. So I think the work begins by saying, I'm actually tired of doing things the same old way. I want to do something different. I want to feel better. I want to feel more expansive. I don't feel like doing the math. The math is hard. And the math is where we are always checking in to seeing if we are too much, too loud, too big, too bright, too strong. Did I say too much? Did I take up too much space? Any of those things are how we start to heal.
Beautiful. I love that you mentioned the spreading kindness because that's the theme, that's the intention around season 5 of this show. So
Mm.
I love that we get to start to be kind to our little one and be gentle, yet keep moving and keep growing, and that we stop bullying ourselves, and so we get to then bring that kindness to others. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely starts within because that inner critic and bully,
Yeah.
it's alive and flourishing and growing, and to not feed it would be to change and do something which seems like it's something radical, but it really is just considering self. And is this really in my pleasure? Is this okay? Am I just going along? Am I just trying to fit in that narrow margin and not stand out?
Mm.
The answer is usually yes.
Well, shall we venture to the second stop on the tour?
Let's move on. The second stop on the emotional tour, and I called it the emotional tour because when practicing, and this will be something we get to share later live with your group, but the second stop on the emotional tour is grief.
Mm.
And grief, while not an emotion that anyone wants to ever experience, as we live, as we love, as we dream, as we show up each day, we're going to experience the three ingredients that make up for grief, and that is loss, change, disappointment,
Mm.
regardless of what we're grieving. And grief really runs a wide spectrum. I get really excited about grief, and I know that's it. I get excited because I see how needed the work is in the world, and I see the fear of going near it. And I believe it is my calling, my work to make something scary, like literally just to shine the light on it. It's not so scary if we look at it. If not, it's not so scary if we understand it. It's not so scary if we know how to tend to ourselves during it. And it didn't say it wouldn't be challenging and hard and disappointing and sad. But it is because we loved, we dared to love, to dream, and to expect a different outcome. And whether that is losing a person, a job, a pet, an identity,
Mm.
however the loss goes, sometimes in death, other times in just someone needing or something needing to leave our lives. The expectation was something we hoped would be different, and there's been some loss, change, and disappointment. And this grief, wow, the work of the Dagara tribe in Burkina Faso, West Africa, there's such beautiful work done there. And I learned from that tradition. One of my favorite things about the grief rituals that are held in person or online, or the mini grief ritual that's done in the emotional tour, is that there's this question that is asked, and it is have you grieved enough? There's so much patience around this time. It unfolds slowly and unique to each person. And what we want to do is rather than shame grief, rather than be impatient with it, rather than avoid it, to allow it to come through so that we can move through our world having grieved and knowing that we won't stay stuck at the point of grief, that where it entered. We won't be there because life goes on, time goes on, and so our relationship to what we're grieving does change. What or
Mm.
who?
Yeah. I would say the biggest grief period or the most potent grief period for me was the last trimester
Mm-hmm.
before I gave birth to my first child.
Okay.
And so much grief around there's no more single Tanya, there's no more independent Tanya. Oh my God, it hit me so hard that last trimester. And I let myself fully go there, like just feeling all the crying. And, it's like, no, you don't have to be excited yet that this baby's coming.
Right.
And I would say a lot of women postpartum, this
Oh,
this is what comes up. It's like, oh shit, like
absolutely. It's
I am no
huge.
longer the same person.
Not only are you not the same person, you don't even know who you're going to be next. So
Exactly.
so it's this incredible liminal space where we don't know the forward. Of course, there's this hope that, will I be a great mom? I want to be a great mom. But the old Tanya no longer exists as a result of this. And anytime we're doing something a first time, there's this moment of, who am I? When my
Yeah.
mom passed in September, all this grief came up because my life has always been connected to her in some way, and now she is gone. And who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I without that relationship, good, bad, or indifferent? Because my mom and I had a challenging relationship, and my whereas a sister of mine had a beautiful, loving relationship and was losing her best friend. We had a very different experience, but both were true.
Yeah.
And whether it's becoming a mom, even looking forward to a happy experience can bring up grief because we are no longer who we knew prior to that experience coming.
Yeah.
And there's a grieving of what we loved about that Tanya that could do all kinds of things without the responsibility of this beautiful child's coming, and not knowing what that life looks like. And you can do two things at once. You can look forward to it, be excited about it, and grieve what's happening. And so it can seem really confusing.
I'm glad you just brought that piece up
Yeah.
because it's really about holding the both and
Yes.
that when you do this work, when you do the emotional tour, then you have more capacity to actually be with these emotions as they're simultaneously coming up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the emotional tour is really just to express. I like to refer to it as an emotional gym. It's a place that you go to, and we do the workout. We work it out and feel these emotions rather than cast them aside. And we're present with them. We give them sound and movement and imagery so that when we are feeling these, there's some recognition in the body, so we know how to be with them. We know
Mm.
shame. Shame is built in really early, but to let that go and to decide we're not going to be shackled by those old paradigm ways of dealing with emotions, which were making people sick and
Yeah.
unhealthy and angry and bitter and all kinds of things. We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Mm. So, what's our third stop?
Third stop on the emotional tour is anger.
Mm.
Anger. And this is an emotion that people has gotten a rap. Anger is a bad thing. You
Yeah.
don't want to be that. And anger is, I just want to always like to bring the definition of what it is. And anger is just saying something is unfair. Something is unjust, and that something needs to be said or done about it. Anger is just saying this, I'm not okay with this. Anger is different from rage. Rage is old anger. Rage was angry a long time ago, and nothing was done about it, and therefore it combusts. It's destructive. It hurts people, and it it's different from needing to rectify something.
Mm.
Anger destroys. And so, speaking to, I'm sorry, rage destroys. Anger is just, hey, I'm not okay with that, or that's a no for me, or here's a boundary we found. It is speaking up and out and doing something about an injustice.
Mm. I have a question. So,
Please.
could rage be channeled constructively? Could rage, there's the sacred rage that a lot of women are talking about these days. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what's that distinction of where
Rage,
we could tap into rage, but to use that energy for good?
I would suggest, in my opinion, using
Yeah.
anger for good. Rage is Rage has a different impact on the body and nervous system.
Mm.
And in my opinion, as my work evolved years ago when I began, that emotional tour stop was called Rage. Now, when I developed it, I worked with psychotherapists to develop the emotional tour. And the rage piece does not have a healing in it. It has a blow it up in it. Whereas now I don't I think I don't know enough about the sacred rage. I think there's a nuanced way of putting a spin on anger. And I'm sure Kali energy gets called in. Kali is love. Kali is love, protective of, and loving. So if if turning something on its head because it is absolutely unjust or unfair, and it needs to be stopped, and we're going to shut this down. If that's what's being referred to as sacred rage, I'm all for it.
Mm.
Rage tends to leave just utter destruction in its path, and that's my concern. That it's not a term I would use, but if that's my understanding of it, I can see how someone would use it.
Well, I really like that distinction and the nuance of we don't have to be afraid of our anger, and an honoring of the anger versus and I love that piece around the nervous system, that the rage can blow out your nervous system. And
Totally.
that's not what we're doing.
No.
That's not what we're interested in. So I've never heard that, and I really appreciate that distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, rage doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
The
right?
thing about rage
Yeah.
is, and what I'm often, when I think of rage, I use the example of road rage. Road rage is when someone is out of control and they're just pissed because someone cut them off or did something, and in that moment, often when people do things that are rage filled, when they're calm, they actually wish they hadn't done the thing. Whereas anger is different. This is not okay. I want this, I need to speak up about how this is having an impact, particularly women. I want to say, because there's such care for others
Mm-hmm.
in the hearts of women, we tend to see what's not okay, not just for ourselves. It literally, this is not working. This is not okay for this group of people, for these children. It's more spread out, and something needs to be done about it. That's not rage. That's anger.
Yeah.
And both have gotten a bad rap by this. Uh, However, anger is saying, no, I am not okay with this, and let's go about correcting this. Anger is what I feel around productive rights. You don't get to say what's okay with my body. That is, rage would be, whipping out an Uzi and taking people out because they have those thoughts. That's, yeah,
Yeah, which isn't constructive at all.
not constructive.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what's
so
our
there's a
next stop?
constructive piece to the anger. The next stop on the emotional tour is, let's see, we've done joy, grief, anger. The next stop is desire.
Ooh.
Desire is something, now there's a burning off of the big pieces, and then what we want gets to come through. What do you want? How do you want it? Where do you want it? uh, and really being, I invite people to think of what they want on their human personal altar. What belongs there? Put it there in your favorite colors and your favorite tones and shades, and really drop into what's rightfully yours. If you can imagine it, it's not too big. So I've learned to be very specific with the universe, because I think there's a sense of humor there. That's pretty wicked. So, like, what is it that you really want to call in, and giving voice to that, and moving that in your body, inviting it in. There's another piece in there with desire, and that is receiving, because we can create great uh, imagery of what we desire, but as long as it feels out there, there can be sort of this Teflon bounce off, like it's just in my imagination. But no, I want my house on the cliff in Kauai with my partner. I want that. I want to get really graphic about the description. And more than that, I want to open to um, not just to receiving that, but to attract my desires to me. I want to be wide-hearted, open eyes, open legs, fingers, arms, energy open to saying yes, the hell yes, to what it is that I so deeply desire. Desire. Yeah. It's a sexy stop.
Oh, yeah. Sexy stop. What's our next stop? How many stops are there?
There are 6 stops. And so
Okay.
we did joy, anger, grief, desire, now confidence.
Ooh.
Confidence is how we move through the world. It's how we, and it's also something that it, each of these stops, we're noticing where they land in the body and giving sound to that and
Mm.
movement to that and play within that. And how does confidence feel in your body? This is not an emotional place that I want to overlook, because it takes confidence to stand firmly in what you are emoting, because there's a lot of shame around any of these emotions. Your laugh's too loud, your grief's too sad for us, you're too angry. Everything is a two. Your desires, you're too sensual, you're too wanting, too greedy. And then with confidence, you're too cocky. There's all these twos for everything. But standing in your confidence and feeling confident in your body feels really good, and it looks good, and it's inviting. And that's that I just love playing in confidence. But then the last
The
stop
last stop.
is really fun, and it doesn't quite make sense. I always have to explain it because it's not an emotion, but it makes you feel something. The last stop is flirt.
Ooh.
The last stop is flirt. And flirt is so fun, but flirting is being so okay with your joy that you will laugh with abandon, that you will spread joy, that you will celebrate what you're excited and happy about, that you don't turn that down. It is being with yourself and asking what your needs are when you are grieving, and being okay to say, I'm not okay. No, I'm not okay, and I'm going to need some time and space because my heart's heavy right now. It is it is
Mm.
speaking up when you are angry, and not doing the math and thinking it's not okay for me to do that, and believing that your voice has value. It is saying my desires are rightfully mine. Not only am I going to paint a picture, I am going to be open to receiving them. It is saying, yes, I am confident and it feels good. And I stand taller when I am. And this is how I want to show up. So when you flirt, it's because you're so okay with yourself that you get to play. You get to walk through life literally having some fun. And flirting is not about wanting something from another. It is being so full on me that everything I do, sipping a cup of tea can be a flirting, because I'm just enjoying me so much that I can have fun with this, you know? And it's the way I show up with anything. And that's the mood and that I want to
Mm.
spread and to see more of. Some fun.
Ooh. Yes.
There's no math in there. When you're flirting, there's nothing being measured, because you're just having your own sweet good time with this thing called life.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to go on this emotional tour with you.
I can't wait to
Ah,
have you do it, and to do this all set to African drums where we get to play and dance in it. Come on, it's good stuff.
such good stuff. Yeah. All right, sisters. So if you're listening to this and you're as excited as me to go on this tour, and yes, you might have some fear and you might have some resistance, but that's it. We get to be brave and work through that together. And I can just imagine what's now going to become possible after we feel so deeply and release and just step into that confident, flirty, fun energy. So just go into the show notes. We'll have the link to join Bernadette and me live for this emotional tour. And then we'll have the replay available. So if you're watching this after it's already happened, then you can just, do it on your own. And we'll also have the link for other time, for you to connect with Bernadette if you're wanting to do it live and it's already passed when we've done it together. So yeah. We get to go on this journey.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's nothing to prepare for. You just show up, give yourself some space. And I always tell people at the beginning, this is where you get to show up and be too much and celebrate it. Yes.
Yeah. And I love the timing of this. If we're doing this right before our How to Lead Circle participants, the women in the program are about to lead their first circle. And so we get to work through some of the stuff that is holding you back and just kind of having you be a little contracted. And we get to move that energy through this beautiful journey and open you up to then step into the world with more of that flirty energy and really claim your desire of creating the circle. And I just can't imagine what's going to be possible for these ladies after they're done with it.
A perfect timing for them. Yeah, they just get to burn off all of that and stand in their power as they move into holding these beautiful spaces for others. Yeah, because of course they always have to continue to do their work so that they get to show up as leaders. It's perfect.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay, so in wrapping up here, is there any last thing that you want to say before we close?
I just want to say that it is so important to do this work, to hold these containers, to do the work yourself so that you can show up as a leader. And I'm so excited to share this. It's a healing modality that gets our bodies moving, gets all of this water flowing, and it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, sisters. So yeah, click on that link and come join us. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Brave Woman podcast. And we'll see you next week.
You just listened to this show. I'd love for you to leave the Brave Woman podcast an honest review. Reviews help podcasts like this one grow, making it more possible for me to devote my time, energy, and money to its production. If you take a screenshot of your review and email it to support@sistershipcircle.com, we'll send you one of our archetype activations as a thank you gift. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
Up next, want to learn some of the secrets to fill your circles, retreats, and events? Join me as I jam with Casey Villard, a 7-figure entrepreneur who hosts hundreds of women each year at the As She Rises live event.